Hello Viking friends around the world, and welcome to this very special episode of Viking.TV, which begins our week of programs celebrating our four-legged friends. And as most of you will know, I and many in the Viking family love dogs. My Labradors Finse and Charlie are almost always by my side, and they bring me so much joy, as I'm sure many of your pets do for you as well. Though I haven't seen my little ones in far too many weeks, I get to borrow my friends' dogs, who are also very special, aren't you? Yes, you are. Although every dog, of course, is extraordinary in its own way. But in this program, we wanted to introduce you to some dogs who've really made history and left their mark on the world. Viking friends from around the world have come together to tell you the stories of dogs so extraordinary that a statue exists in their honor. So I'll now hand you over to our friends who will take you on a trip around the world to meet some truly remarkable dogs. Enjoy.
Hello everyone, my name's Neil Barclay and I'm based in Viking's London office. Now this isn't a London accent, this is an Edinburgh accent, and I'd like to take you back to my home city of Edinburgh today to tell you the story of Edinburgh's most famous dog, Greyfriars Bobby. Now Greyfriars Bobby not only has a statue to commemorate him, but he also has a pub named after him, and the pub's found on Candlemaker Row, right in the heart of the city. But who was Greyfriars Bobby and what's his story? Well, it all dates back to 1850, when John Gray, a gardener by trade, moved to Edinburgh with his family to find work. Now, unable to find work as a gardener, he took up the job as a night watchman for the police. To see John through the long nights, he got a companion, and his companion was Bobby, a Skye Terrier. And John and Bobby built up a great friendship, and they were often seen wandering the streets of Edinburgh. Sadly, John died of tuberculosis in February 1858 and is buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard. Bobby set up watch by his grave, and despite the cold nights and lack of shelter, Bobby refused to leave his master's grave. The groundsman of the church tried to move him on, but again Bobby refused to leave. In the end, they built a shelter next to John's grave so he could stay there protected from the elements. Bobby soon became famous in Edinburgh, and crowds would gather from near and far to see this most loyal of dogs. Every day, Bobby would leave the churchyard and he'd follow a local joiner, William Dow, to a coffee house that Bobby used to frequent with his master, and in the coffee house, Bobby would be fed and watered. Now, stray dogs were seen as a problem in Victorian Edinburgh, and in 1867 a new bylaw was passed saying that all dogs must be licensed, or they would be destroyed. Luckily, Lord Provost William Chambers was a dog lover, and he organised for the town council to pay for Bobby's dog licence, and this would save him from being destroyed. Bobby wore a collar which said, "Greyfriars Bobby from the Lord Provost 1867, licensed," and this can be seen at the Museum of Edinburgh. Bobby was cared for by donations from the people of Edinburgh until he died in 1872. And for all of those 14 years, he lived in the churchyard at his master's side, guarding his grave. Bobby himself was buried nearby. Baroness Angela Georgina Burdett Coutts, president of the Ladies' Committee of the RSPCA, was so deeply moved by this story that she asked the City Council for permission to erect a granite fountain with a statue of Bobby placed on top. William Brodie sculptured the statue, and it was unveiled without ceremony in November 1873, opposite Greyfriars Kirkyard. Now, Bobby's story remains famous today. In 1912, Eleanor Atkinson published a novel based on the story, and in 1961, Walt Disney made it into a film. The statue of Greyfriars Bobby has become a popular attraction, and people now rub his nose for good luck, which is unfortunately eroding the statue away. It's a wonderful story that still captures people's hearts today, and as it says on his tombstone, let his loyalty and devotion be a lesson to us all.
Hi everyone, I'm Carmen from the PR team at Viking UK, and today I am in Battersea, which is south of Chelsea in the heart of London, in front of the Battersea Dog and Cat Home. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the statue of the brown dog, which is found in Battersea Park. So come along. The first statue of a brown dog was erected in Battersea Park in February 1906, but it quickly became embroiled in protests and controversy, and the original statue was destroyed in 1910. The current statue was created by English sculptor Nicola Hicks and was erected in 1985. But what happened to the first brown statue? The original brown dog statue was born out of what is known as the Brown Dog Affair. In 1903, two women who were part of the Anti-Vivisection Society in Sweden and medical students in London made the public accusation that they attended a lecture where Dr. William Bayliss, a physiologist, carried out an illegal vivisection on a brown terrier who wasn't fully anesthetized. This was condemned as cruel and unlawful by the National Anti-Vivisection Society, and there were strong feelings against vivisection amongst members of the public, and Queen Victoria herself had also opposed it. However, researchers and medical students were often using these live animals to conduct much needed research, and Dr. Bayliss had used these experiments to make important breakthroughs on the role of hormones in controlling of functions in the body. The story caused much outrage, and barrister Stephen Coleridge, who was secretary of the Anti-Vivisection Society at the time, gave a speech accusing Dr. Bayliss of torture, which was published in the Daily News. Of course, Dr. Bayliss retaliated and the case was taken to court, with Bayliss accusing Coleridge of defamation. Bayliss won the case, and after the trial, the World League Against Vivisection raised £120 to commission a statue of a brown dog as a memorial. The statue was designed by Joseph Whitehead and included a drinking fountain for humans and a lower fountain for dogs. The statue was erected in Latchmere Recreation Ground in Battersea Park in 1906 and was unveiled in front of a large crowd where speakers included George Barnard Shaw. The statue had a plaque which read as follows: "In memory of the brown terrier, dog done to death in the laboratories of University College in February 1903, after having endured vivisection extending over more than 2 months, and having been handed over from one vivisector to another, till death came to his release. Also in memory of the 232 dogs vivisected at the same place during this year, 1902. Men and women of England, how long shall these things be?" This statement angered medical students who saw it as a smear towards their profession, and the statue was often vandalized, and eventually it needed 24-hour police guard. On 10 December 1907, hundreds of medical students marched through central London, waving models of brown dog on sticks, clashing with suffragettes trade unionists, and 300 police officers. One of a series of battles that became known as the Brown Dog Riots. In March 1910, tired of controversy, Battersea Council sent 4 workers, accompanied by 120 police officers, to remove the statues under the cover of darkness. And despite a 20,000 strong petition, it was reportedly melted down by the council's blacksmith. And what about the new statue? Well, 75 years after the original brown dog statue was removed, a memorial was unveiled on December 1985, behind the pump house in Battersea Park. Designed by sculptor Nicola Higgs, the statue is based on her own terrier. And the statue continued to attract controversy, and in 1986 it was condemned by the British Medical Journal. In 1992, the statue was moved into storage, but campaigners pushed for its return, and in 1994 it was reinstated in the Woodland Walk near the Old English Garden, where we stand today.
Here we have a hot dog seller on 5th Avenue and 59th Street. But we're going to be talking about a different kind of dog today. A hero dog. No, I don't mean a big sandwich. I mean a real hero. A hero who did something, well, that only a dog could do. Hello, travelers. I'm a guide of New York City. My name is Cyril Glass. We do sightseeing tours in New York. Hope to see you soon. We're here at the statue of a hero dog. They say every dog has his day. Well, Balto certainly had his. And that day was in January 1925, when he was the member of the last dog team that brought medicine to the city of Nome, Alaska. In January of 1925, there was an epidemic among the children, a diphtheria epidemic. The medication was in Anchorage, but there was 1,000 kilometers from Anchorage to Nome. They took it by train as far as they could, and then it was 7 or 8 teams of dogs that carried it in relays the last 1,000 kilometers. Balto was the last 100 kilometers entering Nome in January. Later that day, his photograph was taken, and it was all over the newspapers in America. He was a hero. There were interviews in the radio. He became a celebrity. He went to Hollywood. His friends were Rin Tin Tin and Lassie. Then finally he was stuffed and is now in a museum in Cleveland, Ohio. But his legend lives on, because these dogs, Balto's team was the last 100 kilometers that came into the city. This is the plaque underneath the statue of Balto, dedicated to the indomitable spirit of the sled dogs that rallied antitoxin 600 miles over ice, across treacherous waters, through the Arctic blizzard, from Nenana to the relief of stricken Nome in the winter of 1925. Endurance, fidelity, intelligence. Well, this could be the motto of New York City tour guides also, couldn't it, Lisa?
It absolutely could.
But there is another almost untold story of the other teams. All of them were heroes, but especially Togo, another dog that belonged to the same trainer, Leonard Seppala, a Finnish-Norwegian who had come to live in Nome, Alaska. And Leonard Seppala took his team from Nome, went south. To gain time, he crossed across the water and the ice to save one day. There he met a relay coming up from the south and then went back across the ice to save time. The dogs were sleep deprived. They had to run 400 kilometers before they met up with the last relay. Togo's paws were all cut up from the ice. His claws were damaged, all the dogs in the team. But they did their best. They did what they had to do. So here we are to honor Balto. But Togo is also not forgotten. And he also has a statue in New York City, downtown in Seward Park. And we're going to go there now. So here we are at the other dog statue in New York, down in Lower Manhattan, near the Lower East Side in Chinatown. Togo, named after, what else? A Japanese admiral, famous in the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. As we know, Balto was the dog that was in the team that entered Nome. It was 100 kilometers. But Togo was a dog that led a team from Nome across the Sound, across the ice to save one day of travel, picked up the serum with the other dogs and his musher, who was Leonard Seppala, and then came back across the ice taking tremendous risks. His paw pads were cut up, his claws were broken from scrambling on the ice. So here, at last, the forgotten hero of the Mercy race to bring the antitoxin to Nome, Alaska. This statue dates from 2001. Balto's statue dates from 1925. Balto got his picture in the newspapers. Balto got his interviews on the radio. Balto got to meet Lassie and Rin Tin Tin. He moved to Poland Springs, Maine, where he ran in races and bred many dogs. We don't know how many. We know the names of a few of them, but what's famous about him was that when he was a puppy, he was very, very wild dog. And so his owner gave him away. What did Togo do at the age of 6 months? He jumped through a glass window and ran back to his kennel. And then whenever the sled dogs would go out, he would follow the sled dogs. So one day, Leonard, the musher, decided that since he's going to be there anyway, he put him behind the lead dog. And lo and behold, he was a born sled dog. And in that very trip, he moved him up to the front, the lead dog position, because he was a born leader, a dog of dogs. So every dog has his day, and now Togo has his. And you travelers, when you come to New York, remember, we tour guides are there to show you around the real sights of the city, the untold stories of New York.
Welcome to Juneau, Alaska's beautiful capital city. I'm Beth from Temsco Helicopters. Temsco is Alaska's original helicopter glacier tour operator. We are proud to welcome guests both here in Juneau and in Skagway on once-in-a-lifetime helicopter adventures. Whether you dream of walking on stunning blue glacier ice or zipping through the snow on a sled pulled by Alaskan Huskies, Temsco is sure to have a tour that will leave you with memories that will last a lifetime. Today, I am here to tell you about Juneau's most famous dog. When you think of a famous dog in Alaska, you might think sled dog. However, Juneau's most famous dog is an English Bull Terrier named Patsy Ann. Patsy Ann was dubbed the official greeter of Juneau, Alaska in 1934. She is commemorated here on the docks of downtown Juneau. Her statue was placed on this spot so that she can continue to welcome guests arriving on ships in the Gastineau Channel as she did in the 1930s. Although born deaf, Patsy Ann would always know when a ship was going to arrive to Juneau. Long before a foghorn sounded or a ship came into view, Patsy Ann would stop what she was doing and run for the docks. She would always know exactly which dock the ship would arrive at, and she never missed a ship. This was a true feat because the steamships of the era didn't arrive on a regular schedule like the cruise ships do today. Patsy Ann's fame spread beyond Juneau, and incoming passengers would excitedly look for the popular pooch. The ship's crew even grew fond of Patsy Ann and would have treats at the ready when they arrived. When she wasn't busy greeting ships, Patsy Ann would make her way to her favorite local businesses. She would get treats and attention from the hotel owners, the restaurant workers, barkeepers, and patrons. She was even known to walk up and down the aisles of the Coliseum Theater during musical performances looking for handouts. After a long day of greeting ships and getting treats, Patsy Ann would cozy up at the Longshoremen's Union Hall and stay there for the night. After many happy years of greeting ships, Patsy Ann died on March 30th, 1942. 50 years later, the Friends of Patsy Ann commissioned her statue. Artist Anna Burke Harris from Albuquerque, New Mexico, was chosen to create the sculpture. Harris was inspired by Patsy Ann's story. She even had 2 bull terriers of her own that acted as the models for her initial sculpting. When creating and casting the sculpture, she included pieces of dog hair and fur from people donated around the world. This was to commemorate the special spirit that our canine companions have. The statue was finished on July 3rd, 1992, and she was placed on her spot here on the docks. Patsy Ann continues to welcome guests arriving to Juneau as she did in the 1930s. So, on your Viking cruise adventure to Alaska, make sure you stop by and see Patsy Ann, the official greeter of Juneau, Alaska.
Hello Viking friends from all around the world. My name is Olga and today we are here in Moscow, the heart of Russia, to show you some of the greatest monuments dedicated to dogs. So come with us. A homeless Russian mongrel, or the international hero. This tiny statue of a dog standing on the top of a rocket behind my back is dedicated to the first living creature to ever orbit the Earth. And right now we are near Moscow Military Research Facility, where this monument was commemorated to Laika. This charming little dog played an important role in the history of space travel. Back in 1957, Laika was chosen by the Soviet scientists for the first flight on satellite Sputnik 2. Before the flight, Laika was properly trained and equipped with a spacesuit. Unfortunately, Laika had no idea there would be no coming home. Although the official report stated that she had spent 7 days in the space and then had been euthanized remotely, it was later revealed that Laika had tragically died a few hours later after the start. Journalists described Laika as the most shaggy, the most unhappy, the most lonely dog in the world. Little did she know, wandering the streets of Moscow, that she would end up being a symbol of all animals that died during the experiments for the benefit of mankind. The monument was placed here only 5 decades after the heroic flight on the day of cosmonautics, April the 11th. You can see our brave Laika standing on top of a rocket that transforms in their hand, rushing her towards the stars. Thanks to the experiment with Laika, however, it was later confirmed that a living being can survive a launch into orbit. A few years after, the USSR sends another couple of dogs into space, the famous Belka and Strelka, who, luckily for them, returned safely from the orbital trip. Soviet scientists picked the dog off the streets of Moscow. They realized strays would endure the harshness of space much better. Both dogs were properly trained to endure the extreme challenges of space travel. On August the 19th in 1960, they launched Sputnik 2 into space. Belka and Strelka orbited the Earth more than a dozen times before landing the next day and returned home as national heroes. Even though this monument near the National Defense Management Center is not so popular, Belka and Strelka are still admired in Russia and all over the world as they prove it was possible to survive in space and led path to Yuri Gagarin, who, the following year, was the first human to ever orbit the Earth. We all need a bit of luck during this uneasy time. Let's ask Irma for some before we hop on the train. When having a tour in the Moscow metro, make sure to stop by Ploshchad Revolution station. Among the 75 statues of Soviet people, you will find a bodyguard with a dog whose paw and nose have been rubbed to a golden shine. The first to come up with the idea to rub its nose were the students of Baumanka University. On their way to the exams, they stopped by Irma and rubbed its nose, hoping to pass. The dog had a real-life inspiration. Its name was Irma and she was a German Shepherd. She lived in the house of Alexei Nikolaevich Dushkin, the architect of many Moscow metro stations. Unfortunately, Irma hadn't lived to see the war, but during her lifetime she received many awards and took part in multiple exhibitions. So right now we are near Russian Military Historical Society, and this monument right next to me is a representation of a German Shepherd named Alf. You can see it's lying on special tank tracks and it's wearing a medical pack. Such packs were used by dogs during the Second World War to deliver medicines to field doctors. This statue commemorates more than 60,000 dogs of various breeds that served during the war, helping the soldiers by neutralizing and detecting explosive devices of the enemy. According to the statistics, these frontline dogs saved from bullets more than 700,000 wounded soldiers. The idea to erect this monument belongs to World War veterans who thought we should pay tribute to our loyal friends for risking their lives and fight alongside men on equal terms.
Hi, it's Lloyd here from Sydney, Australia. I'm standing outside the beautiful late 1800s shopping arcade, the Queen Victoria building. And in Australia, we absolutely love our animals, whether it's dogs, cats, or our incredible indigenous animals like koalas, kangaroos, Tasmanian devils, wombats, and many, many others. However, we also love a great statue. I'm standing in front of Queen Victoria's little dog, Islay, her very best friend. This is Islay here. Islay was a Scottish terrier, or a Cairn terrier, and indeed lived between the years of 1839 and 1844. Islay was the very best friend of Queen Victoria. In fact, it's said that Islay used to sit on his hind legs begging for biscuits, and the Queen absolutely loved him. He went everywhere with Queen Victoria. Unfortunately, in the year 1844, early 1844, Islay came to a rather nasty end when he got into a fight with a cat and ended up in defeat. Fortunately, Islay never made it and died. Islay's actually buried in Adelaide Cottage in Windsor Castle, and Islay looks across over to the beautiful Queen Victoria statue, which was put here in the 1980s and was found by the Director Promotions of the QVB building. When they were renovating the building, Neil Glass's job was to go out and find and source a Queen Victoria statue. After many, many rejections, he finally found a statue sitting in a cottage in Ireland. This particular Queen Victoria statue used to sit outside the Houses of Parliament in Dublin. Negotiations were made, and eventually In the mid-80s, the statue was shipped out here and now sits here proudly with her dog Islay in front of the Queen Victoria building.
We hope you've enjoyed hearing these stories of remarkable dogs from around the world. I'm joining you now from England, where I'm very, very happily reunited with my beloved Labradors Finse and Charlie. As many of you know, Finse has been on some remarkable adventures of her own, joining me on many of my travels around the world. And as some of you may know, though there are no statues of Finse, at least not yet, nor to my knowledge, these journeys we've made together have turned into a series of beautiful children's books illustrated by our friend, the very talented Susie Jane Tanner. Some of those books are behind me, as you may see. And some of Finse's many adventures have even included meeting some of the incredible dogs that you've seen featured tonight. So if you'd like to share cultural insights to the world as told through the eyes of a Labrador, we've digitized the books for you and your little ones, and have even a narrated version by Finse's human voice, Claudia, available for you on a link next to this video or on the Finse channel on Viking.TV. Are you falling asleep? We would like to say a big thank you to our Viking friends around the world for sharing these stories with us today to kick off Dog Appreciation Week towards the end of this year, a year in which those of us who've had pets to help us get through it are extra appreciative for their presence, aren't we? Yes, we are. These ones are a bit tired because I just took them on a really, really long walk. Or perhaps you took me on a really, really long walk. Who knows? All right. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.